All the Undo's by MsKingBean89, Chapter 67, 4th Year, February, Part 2. Remus almost missed what happened, because everyone in the crowd immediately stood up, jostling to see the disaster unfold. Fortunately, when Remus stood up, he was a good deal taller than those around him. Sirius tried, no one could deny that. The moment he saw the bludger at Regulus, he went flat on his broom and shot forward as if the devil was at his heels, faster than Remus had ever seen anyone, even James, fly. In fact, Sirius gathered so much speed at such a terrifying vertical angle that Remus felt sure he was going to crash to the ground too, and his stomach lurched with fear. Sirius was too late, but Madame Mooch was not. She stood on the grass, wand raised, and managed to slow Regulus's descent, so that his body appeared to be falling through water, not air. By the time Sirius hit the ground, dropping his broom and pelting towards his brother, Regulus was lying so peacefully he could have been sleeping. Sirius was on his knees, the rest of the team were landing around him, McGonagall was shouting something over the megaphone, and a crowd quickly surrounded the two black brothers, so that no one could see anything. Remus began to hobble down the wooden steps as quickly as his wonky ear pulled out. Peter skirted along behind him. "Where are you going?" he panted. "Sirius," was all Remus could think to say. But once they'd reached the ground level, they couldn't get onto the pitch. Heads of houses was shepherding students back into the castle and wouldn't let them past. "They'll have taken Regulus to the hospital wing," Peter said. "Maybe Sirius is in the changing rooms." "No," Remus shook his head. "No, he'd want to go with Reg. He probably thinks it's all his fault." "Well," Peter looked up at him, "he did hit the bludger, didn't he?" Remus clenched his fist and fought the urge to hit Peter. "I'm going to the hospital wing then." He turned and began to stride awkwardly towards the castle, trying to get ahead of everyone else. "What about James?" Peter had to jog to keep up. "He'll be there too," Remus replied. And of course he was. When Peter and Remus arrived outside the hospital wing, having battled their way through the throngs of gossiping students, they found James sitting on the floor outside, elbows resting on his knees, staring into space. He was still in his Quidditch robes, his cheeks were still flushed from flying, and his hair was a mess. "Is he okay?" Remus asked at once. He wasn't sure who he meant. "Yeah, I think so." James looked up at them in dazed surprise. "Knocked out cold though. Pomfrey won't let me in." "Sirius?" "Yeah, he's in there. Thought I'd better wait. Slughorn's contacting their parents, so..." He shrugged. "Thought I'd better be here." "We're all here," Remus said, firmly, sitting down next to James with some difficulty. His hip was really sore now. The pain shot all the way down from his pelvis to his ankle. Peter eventually squatted down too, and they waited. "Did you see what happened?" James asked, finally. "I was on the other end of the pitch. I didn't..." "A bludger," Remus said. "Multiple hit one right at Sirius. It had to be a foul. Sirius hit it back at him, but Multiple got out of the way, and Regulus was right behind him. Sirius can't have seen him. It was an accident. It was horrible." "Shit," James said. They were quiet for a bit longer. It was starting to grow dark, and the candles in the sconces along the wall opposite began to light themselves. Remus wondered what James and Peter were thinking. Were they more worried about Sirius than Regulus, like he was? He felt a bit guilty. Madame Pomfrey had been putting them back together since he was 11 years old. He didn't think that a bludger to the head was beyond her abilities. What concerned him more was the state Sirius would be in. He'd thrown X's at Regulus 100 times, but he had never, ever hurt his little brother intentionally. This hadn't been intentional either, but Remus knew in his gut that Sirius wouldn't see it that way. They were disturbed from their thoughts by the quick clacking of high heels on the flagstones and Professor McGonagall's worried voice coming around the corner. "Please, Warburger, he couldn't be in safer hands with Madame Pomfrey. It's really best that he isn't moved." "I think I shall be making the decisions here, Minerva," that cold, low voice replied. James and Peter leapt up, nervously, and James bent to help Remus to his feet. None of them had seen Sirius's mother since that awful Christmas 2 years ago, and their terror of her was still fresh. McGonagall and Mrs. Black came marching around the corner, Walpurga in a thick black travelling cloak and a sharp high-heeled boots. She had the same look of cruel superiority that Remus remembered, but her forehead was creased too, and her hair wasn't as neat as usual. She was accompanied by a small, elderly wizard with a long trailing beard, carrying a heavy-looking dragon-skin case. Walpurga glanced at the three boys waiting outside the hospital wing, and Remus held his breath, but she didn't seem to think it worth her time, and strode past, pushing the wooden doors open with both hands and marching inside. Remus, James, and Peter peered in from the hallway to watch the scene unfold. McGonagall and the bearded wizard hurried in after Mrs. Black. Regulus was lying in a bed, and from what they could tell, he was still unconscious, or maybe just sleeping. With his eyes closed and at a distance, he looked remarkably like Sirius, which made Remus's stomach lurch again. But Sirius was sitting beside him, wide awake in his Gryffindor robes, one foot propped on a stool. He looked very pale, and much smaller than usual. His eyes were red. He seemed to shrink even further as his mother approached, swooping towards her sons like some terrible vampire bat. Madame Pomfrey stepped in just then. "It's quite all right, just a heavy knock," she said, reassuringly. "I've given him a healing draught and mended the fractures." "Fractures?" Walpurga said, sharply. She stood at the end of Regulus's bed, looking down at him. She didn't try to reach out for him, or Sirius, but stood still as a statue. "Very minor, and completely healed now," Madame Pomfrey said. "He'll be up and out by tomorrow morning. Now, Sirius has—" "This is our family physician," Walpurga interrupted, extending her hand to introduce the wizened old man beside her. "He will be taking over my son's care. I'm taking him home as soon as he has been thoroughly examined." "I'm telling you, everything that can be done has been done," Madame Pomfrey said, sounding rather angry now. Walpurga looked down at her imperiously. "Within your competence, I'm sure, but he is my son, and I will care for him as I see fit." Madame Pomfrey turned red in the face and appeared to be quite speechless, so that McGonagall had to lean over and whisper something into her ear to mollify her. The old bearded wizard placed his case on the bedside table and opened it, before silently bending over Regulus. Meanwhile, Walpurga had turned her attention to her elder son. She did not move from the end of the bed, but her hawkish glare was enough to hold Sirius in place. "You," she said, "and what are you doing here?" Sirius said something, but it came out barely above a whisper. Walpurga frowned. "What?" she barked. "Speak up, boy!" "He's my brother," Sirius said, louder now, though his voice was hoarse and cracked slightly. Mrs. Black tittered. "For goodness sake, have you been crying? Try to show at least a modicum of decorum. 'Tis you're pure, Sirius. Try to remember your duty." Sirius did not reply, but bowed his hair falling in front of his face. Remus hoped for his sake that he hadn't begun to cry again. Walpurga continued. "You may leave, Sirius. Your father and I will see you in June." With that, she turned back to Regulus and did not acknowledge Sirius again. James started forward, unable to watch any longer, but Remus held back with Peter. It didn't feel like his place somehow. He didn't have the right. And though Remus wished more than anything he knew it to do, James was always so much better with Sirius. McGonagall had apparently seen James and acted quickly, placing her hand on Sirius's shoulder and gently guiding in and out of his chair and towards the doorway. He was limping slightly. Madame Pomfrey joined them in the hallway and handed Sirius a draught chew. "Straight up to bed and drink every drop. You hear me? You shouldn't be in too much pain, but it'll be uncomfortable tonight." Sirius nodded, warily, not speaking. James clapped him on the shoulder and squeezed, then nodded to McGonagall. She looked like she very much wanted to say something, but held her tongue, only glancing back at Regulus and Mrs. Black. She would keep an eye on the situation, Remus was sure. She would let Sirius know if anything happened. The four marauders walked most of the way to Gryffindor Tower together in dead silence until they came to a dual staircase, and Peter suddenly said, "We've missed dinner." James and Remus glared at him, and he looked very hurt. "What I meant," he squeaked, angrily, "was that I'll go down to the kitchens now and get them to send something up. If that's okay with you two." "Nice one, Pete," James said, apologetically. Remus just shook his head, looking away. Peter turned tail and headed downstairs, while the other three kept going upwards. It was slow progress, considering two of them had pronounced limps. "Right straight wheels, look," Sirius muttered, humorously, as they paused on one of the lanterns for a breather. "What's wrong with you anyway?" Remus finally asked, rubbing his aching hip. "Broke my ankle," Sirius said. "Landed too hard on it." James winced. Sirius shrugged. Can't feel it, just a bit wobbly. When they finally reached their bedroom, Sirius locked himself inside the bathroom to shower and change. Peter shortly reappeared, laden with sandwiches, fruit, chocolate, cakes, and everything else he could carry. Bunch of girls down there want to see Sirius, he huffed, dumping everything onto his bed. There's a gang of second years all making him get well cards. Told them to bugger off. Thanks, Pete, James said. You're a good mate. Peter smiled, finally. He nodded at the closed bathroom door. He okay? He will be, James sighed, stripping off his Quidditch robes and leaving them in a pile on the floor. In just his vest and underwear, he grabbed a chicken sandwich from Peter's bed and bit into it hungrily. Remus and Peter took this as permission and followed in suit. Sirius was in the bathroom a long time, and they thought best to leave him to it. James changed into his usual clothes and began tidying Sirius's eternally messy bed. Remus helped, collecting up the scattered books and half-finished essays. He would finish them, Remus decided. He would do all of Sirius's homework for the entire week, if it helped at all. I fucking hate his family, James said, suddenly, as he shook out one of Sirius's pillows. His mum's even worse than mine, Peter sniffed. Remus began to sort through Sirius's notes, smoothing out the parchment and trying to make sense of what was due when. The bathroom door clicked, and Sirius emerged in his pyjamas, his hair wet and combed back. You hungry, mate? Peter asked, nervously, offering a plate of sandwiches. Sirius just shook his head and walked towards his bed. Just gonna go to sleep, he murmured, pulling the curtains across. Sirius! Remus burst out, before he completely disappeared from view. Sirius stopped, staring at him through the gap in the hanging. Remus chewed his lip. It wasn't your fault, he said. I was watching. It was an accident. You were both just so focused on the game, that's all. Sirius looked at him, his face soft after the shower, his eyes tired and dark. He smiled gently and shrugged. Still did it. Then drew the curtains tight shut. The Quidditch game was declared incomplete, and both teams agreed to a rematch once the Slytherins had found another seeker. The next morning at breakfast, the Slytherin captain received a letter from Walpurga, accusing him of putting his son in danger. Regulus was not present, and rumours abounded, but McGonagall had privately told Sirius that all was well. Mrs. Black simply wished to keep Regulus at home for a further week as precaution. Sirius carried on about his day, but the light in him had dimmed. He didn't ask anyone, make jokes, or even talk out of turn in his lessons. He simply pushed through, as if sleepwalking. Remus was starting to wonder whether he was still in shock of the accident, or the anxiety of having to face his mother inside of Hogwarts. That night was the full moon, so Remus could be of little help to Sirius. Actually, he was a little bit glad to have an excuse to get away from the dorm room, which had become a dismal, quiet place while Sirius was in his mood. Remus wasn't the only one. Peter kept slipping away to visit Desdemona. Perhaps it was all of the quiet and all of the unsaid things and unresolved tension, but February's moon was a bad one. Remus awoke with his throat burnt raw from howling, splinters under his fingernails and bruises all over. Lately he'd noticed the older he got, the more he was able to remember after the transformations. It still wasn't very clear, like remembering a dream. Images and feelings swimming in and out of sight. This time Remus thought that maybe the wolf had wanted something. Maybe it would want to get out more than usual. He lay in the hospital bed, trying to remember, feverish and headachy, too uncomfortable to sleep. The sheets twisted around his ankles like manacles. Morning, Mooney, a soft, sad voice spoke to him. He had to rub his eyes and blink a few times before he even realised it was Sirius. Morning, he slurred, groggy from whatever painkiller he'd been supplied. It always made his accent slip, which he hated. What's you doing here? Sirius sat on the end of the bed and stuck out his feet. Check up on my ankle. It's fine now. Oh, good, Remus nodded, trying to pull himself into a sitting position and failing miserably. How was it? Sirius asked, gesturing broadly at Remus's body. Fine, Remus replied. Normal. Jamesy a chew? Nah, Sirius looked down at his shoes. Giving him a break from me. I don't think he minds. I'll do that. Remus nodded. He didn't like being fussed over either. Mooney? Yeah. You know, you said it wasn't my fault. It wasn't your fault, Remus said, firmly. A little bit too firmly. He felt the muscles in his throat strain and contract as he began to cough. Sirius hopped off the bed and grabbed the glass of water from the nightstand, handing it to Remus. Remus gulped it down, embarrassed, spilling a bit down his front. I didn't hit him on purpose. You're right, Sirius said, looking out of the window over Remus's head, squinting slightly as if he was looking for something out there. But when I saw him fall like that, I thought, don't let him die. Well, of course, Remus frowned. He wished Sirius would meet his eye. He's your brother. Of course you didn't want him to. I wasn't thinking about him, though, Sirius said. I was thinking about me. I was thinking, if he dies, then I'll be the only one left. And my parents will. I wouldn't have anywhere out. I need Regulus to stay alive. I need him to be the perfect son, so that it doesn't matter that I'm a bad son. That's what I was thinking. I'm a coward. Remus didn't know what to say, but he had to say something. You'd still have been sorry if he died, though. Not just because of that. Yeah, but my first thought. People don't think properly when they're scared. Believe me, Remus said, openly sounded authoritative. I saw you. You risked your life trying to save him, and that's not cowardly. Break your stupid ankle like the idiotic hard-headed Gryffindor you are. Sirius exhaled a strained little laugh. He looked at his feet again, then at Remus. Remus smiled at him, encouragingly, even though his jaw ached. Bed gonna be okay? Yeah, fine. Out this morning, being waiting on hand and foot. Sounds like Mother tried to get me kicked off the team too, but he stopped her. There you go then, Remus smirked. You're still the bad son. Sirius laughed.